and welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And the news is, again, not failing to disappoint us. A lot going on. We'll look at our friends at CNN first. Cuomo, Don Lemon, sexual harassment allegations, and even their own people turning against their reporting. You want to comment on that, Dr. Lopkin?
Yeah, CNN is a complete implosion. Again, they've got Cuomo under investigation for sexual harassment, Don Lemon under investigation for sexual harassment, and that one is already going to court.
Yep.
So that's going to be done in public. CNN can't sweep it under the rug. And then they've been spreading so much information that their own reporters, misinformation, yes, that Brian Stelter came out blasting the network. Now, he is a staunch liberal left-wing wacko, and he came out against CNN's coverage of the southern border and the immigration officers on horseback. He said, it's very obvious that nobody was ever whipped. This was a made-up story, and CNN ran with it. So their own people are turning against the fact that they're putting a liberal agenda above facts.
Yeah, I think that, their ratings speak for themselves. When you have internal strife in any organization, that's always a sign that the organization is in dire trouble. Can be in corporate, can be in almost any area of endeavor. But when you have a circle firing squad, it's usually not an indication that things are going well. I think CNN. I think they're still owned by AT&T. There was rumors about that.
They were sold by AT&T. They were part of the Warner Media deal. So this is a new company that merged Warner Media and Discovery channels.
Okay, I don't know what they have a potential gem on their hands, but they got to make huge changes. I mean, another couple of years of this, the damage will be
it'll be irreversible.
Irreversible. And speaking of coverage, though, that is kind of interesting, Obama was, I believe, on an ABC News recorded discussion interview, and he mentioned that why having open borders is unsustainable, and they actually cut it out.
Yeah, the clip did get out. It was on an ABC News podcast. And yes, Barack Obama stated point blank that open borders are unsustainable. That is exactly what he said. And let's face it, they are unsustainable. There is speculation that that was his way of sort of warning Joe Biden that if he keeps doing this stuff, the party's going, south. But I mean, quite frankly, I don't even know that that warning's going to be taken, heeded, or if it's even, too late, because there's a lot of discord within the Democratic Party right now.
I think Biden, I believe he is in serious trouble. I believe it's only the beginning in terms of places like CNN, possibly MSNBC, but network news. There's no way to hide that this guy is out of touch. It came out even in the hearings, the Miley hearings and the State Department hearings, that either Biden lied, which is a definite possibility, or it's even been that he's just so out of it, he doesn't know what he said or who said what. So either or, it's pretty bad. And every time he gets in front, which is happening less frequently, it's a complete disaster. And even if you look at I remember you mentioned it to me, and I've looked at on YouTube, the foreign press, from England and they're just going, they're shocked that this is the American president.
They are appalled. And let's remember, it was only a week or two ago that Biden said to the Indian ambassador, not to take questions because the American media isn't well behaved and they don't ask questions on point. And by on point, he meant things he wants to talk about, which is not the job of the press. It's been what they've been doing for the last several years, but it's not the press's job to ask what the president wants to answer. And, We speculated on this several weeks back, but now I'm hearing it from more even Democratic strategists that there is a strong possibility that Biden and Harris will not be the Democratic nominees in 2024.
Well, I think Biden will probably not even make it through his term. And I also think, I know, that unlike Republicans, Democrats do turn on you when you're no longer used to them. And it's already getting that way with Harris because, look, she's not even out in public anymore. She doesn't even fake to do anything about the border. And Biden, it's just, he's not going to make it mentally. So I think that's without a doubt, they know that they're in trouble with this team. I think DeSantis or a number of Republicans can easily beat them. Even when you have Richard Blumenthal in the hearings lambasting his team, that's when when Blumenthal turns on a fellow liberal, it's parties becoming to a close.
Well, according to some campaign finance filing, Mike Pence is already working on throwing his hat into the ring on the Republican side.
Yeah, no, that's without doubt. We'll see what happens, but I think the key is Trump's got to get out of the way. DeSantis, anyone else can easily handle these band of idiots, which they are, and everyone's starting to realize these people are insane. I mean, there's no. Go ahead. Sorry.
Right now, there is a governor's race in Virginia, and the only attack that the incumbent Democratic governor is making against his Republican candidate, and Virginia is a blue state, has been for a number of years, and this race right now is too close to call. The attack over and over again is he was endorsed by Trump. So we will see. If the Democrat wins, it's not such a bellwether because, again, it's been a reliably blue state. But if the Republican governor wins and these Trump attacks fail, basically that tells you that next year's midterms elections, the Trump attack is not going to help the Democrats.
No, I think that train left the station. It's like blaming your ex-wife, your ex-girlfriend, your ex-boyfriend about your current, problems, whatever they are. Yeah, maybe when you first, separate or whatever, that might be viable. But, it's been 6 months, 8 months, 2 years. Come on.
Yeah.
Even your most staunch liberals say, okay, enough is enough. Stop blaming other people. Looking at the political and economic landscape, that $5 trillion boondoggle that's not that Biden says, again, I don't know how he came up with this. He must think we're so stupid. It has no cost.
Yeah,
which is obviously a joke.
Is absolutely amazing. And something, they keep calling it the $3.5 trillion Congressional Budget Office has already pegged the cost at over $5 trillion.
At least, yes.
And there are some financial tricks in there because that $5 trillion is based on the idea that some of these government benefits are going to expire in 3 years. Meanwhile, the cost is being put over 10 years. Guess what? Government benefits never expire.
No.
They will put it back in. The real cost of this is probably closer to $7 trillion. Because not only is it going to cost money to implement these programs, but it's going to cripple the economy, kill small businesses. You're going to see unemployment skyrocket, inflation skyrocket. So that price, and I actually saw something that the overall cost of doing this, given the damage it's going to do to our economy, could actually reach $1 quadrillion.
But on a I say positive note, Pelosi has pulled it from a vote. Manchin says he's not going to go along with it. Anyone in a, let's say a purple state, whatever you want to call it, there's zero, like West Virginia, he would have his head handed to him. First of all, the coal industry would be just decimated. It's a disaster. I don't think it's going to pass. I think anyone that's not in a blue state like Connecticut or New York, I mean, you got some political risk here.
Well, I don't know if it's The big 3.5 trillion, it looks like it's dead. It doesn't even look like it's going to pass the House. Even if it does, they don't have the votes in the Senate. The Senate will shoot it down quickly because it's not just Manchin. The senator from Arizona says she's not going to vote for it, and there's 6 other Democrats that have said, well, as long as Manchin and the others aren't going to go, we're not voting for it either. So there's almost zero chance of it passing the Senate. What's bad, though, is that the progressives, throwing their temper tantrum, are going to tank the smaller infrastructure bill. This is the bipartisan bill that we need to fix roads, to fix bridges, that it already passed the Senate. It should have the votes to pass the House. And the progressives are throwing a temper tantrum because doesn't matter how much America needs the infrastructure rebuilt. If they can't get their way, the hell with the country.
Well, that's what they always think. Again, I'm not going to really be singing the blues, crying in my beer. I'm sorry, Dr. Lopkin, if the $1 trillion doesn't pass, because that's loaded with more pork than a Denny's buffet. So that's
I'm not going to sing the blues. Every bill is, it's not going to be terrible if it doesn't pass, but the fact of the matter is we have known for a long time that we need to fix our infrastructure. And if our politicians can't get out of their own way to do this, we are in bigger trouble than most people realize.
Well, I think on a positive note, at least for me, and possibly for some of our listeners out there, is I think between Afghanistan, Biden's mental or lack of mental dexterity, and if this agenda tanks, I think I remember we talked about this 2 months ago. Not when I say one and done, I mean 1 year and done. I mean, he could be a lame duck first time in history after 1 year. I mean, Jimmy Carter wasn't a lame duck after a year. This is like a new low water mark.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If the Democrats don't pass either infrastructure bill, the Biden agenda is finished. He is basically completely hamstrung. And let's face it, after 1 year is bad enough, but we know full well, just from history, never mind the current polls, that the Republicans are going to take both the Senate and the House in the midterms, which means nothing is going to get done from the Biden. Yes, his whole agenda will be held up. They will stop it. And people are now, especially Democratic strategists, are comparing these infrastructure bills to Obamacare, where, because they put that big focus on Obamacare, even though they got it done, they lost 66 seats in the House. They only have, I believe, a 4-seat advantage in the House at this point. If they have a turnover like Obama had in his midterm elections, not only are the Republicans going to control both houses, but they're going to have veto-proof majorities, which means they can pass whatever they want.
No question about it. In fact, there's many predictions looking at 40 plus, and that's not smoking pot. That's good political analysts saying that. Speaking, he's keeping on the economy. Again, I'm sorry. I don't really feel sorry for him, but you kind of almost have to. Biden is now in the midst of a potential economic meltdown or severe slowdown, at least. Stocks for like the third day in a row are plummeting. Gas is predicted to hit $90 a barrel, and consumer confidence is down for the third straight month.
Consumer confidence is down, and it's going to keep dropping because the price of consumer goods keeps rising. We've already seen, I believe it's 10 to 15% rise in milk and dairy prices, almost 100% rise in bacon prices. You go to the grocery store and, you're shell-shocked by what's going on. And yes, these are at Biden's feet. Because yes, supply chains have something to do with it. Supply and demand is a big economic factor, and we do not have the supply. primarily because of mask mandates and industries closing up because of COVID, but the constant spending that the Democrats are pushing and the constant buying of debt by the Federal Reserve causes inflation. You said you kind of feel sorry for him. There's nothing to feel sorry, because every one of these crises, from Afghanistan to the infighting in the Democratic Party to inflation, they are all the result of Biden's incompetence. He did this to himself.
Cannot agree more. It's all self-inflicted. But when you have someone, and this is the shame of it, getting back to CNN and other networks, it's not just bad reporting. It's dereliction of duty. It's unpatriotic. They knew this guy was in the tank, and they said nothing. And they asked him, the hardest question he had is, what flavor ice cream do you like? In the heat of an election, fixated on Trump. Yeah, and we can go on for an hour about Trump's abnormalities. I get it. But this guy was not ready for prime time, and yet they never had any questions about it, never asked him hard questions. And now that we really don't have a functioning president. Am I exaggerating?
No, you're not exaggerating. We don't have a functioning president. And honestly, we mentioned Obama's comment about the border earlier. I honestly believe he came out and publicly criticized Biden simply to try to distance himself, because Trump did an amazing job of wiping out Obama's legacy. The Biden presidency was supposed to resurrect it, and it has completely buried it. Obama is going to go down in history as a footnote as the first black president, because both Trump and Biden have demolished his legacy.
That is a brilliant analysis, because anyone can point to Trump and what he did, but now you have basically people in their eyes seeing this as a quasi continuations of the Obama presidency and all the chickens. And it's actually reminding people on how much of a failed president he really was. Yeah, he could sell you ice in the winter, but when it came time to actual policy, he didn't know shit.
Exactly. And, it's more than just a quasi, because most of Biden's advisors, most of the people he brought in, were all in the Obama administration. And, we talked about this a lot when Trump was president, how Trump did not have anybody around him to tell him, no, that's the wrong way to go. We need to do something. Biden has the same problem. Nobody is telling him, at least not strongly enough for him to remember, that he is going in the wrong direction.
I actually think, and I'm not just doing this for effect, I have to disagree with you. I believe if any of us and our listeners out there, if they actually knew the level of dementia he has, I think it would shock the hell out of people. And I believe he literally, I wasn't kidding, I don't think he really knows. I think he can't be. I don't know if he even lied about Afghanistan. I don't think there's a good possibility he may not even remember.
Not remember. But you know what? If his dementia is that bad, the administration has the responsibility to limit the damage and not do what he is telling them.
That could happen as he loses power, loses influence. We've talked about it a billion times. Unlike the Republicans, the Democrats, when you're either weak or no longer used to them, they toss you out like a bad habit. So we'll see how that works out. Now we're looking at, economic related, but United Airlines have fired anyone that's not vaccinated. YouTube has basically banned any content that is slanted towards the anti-vaccination. That's getting a little big brotherish and a little scary, isn't it?
Well, it's scary.
I believe everyone should be vaccinated. I'm being quite honest with you. I think it's kind of bullshit that they're not. But to be fired, it's almost like that's a slippery slope. You can be fired for religious beliefs.
It's a big slippery slope. Now, I encourage people to get vaccinated, but I am absolutely against mandating it, people have the freedom to make the decision. I think even scarier than United Airlines firing people is the fact that New York State is getting rid of 70,000 healthcare workers because they are not vaccinated. Now, and here's the problem with these vaccination mandates. There have been numerous studies proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that being exposed to the COVID virus gives you a much better immune response than the vaccine does. In fact, it's 13 times the immune response that the vaccines give you. Now, you can't tell me that these 70,000 healthcare workers who have been on the front lines for the last year and a half haven't been exposed. So they have better immunity than the vaccine is going to give them. But the governor of New York, our beloved potato in chief, they're pushing vaccine mandates without any regard for the science.
Well, it's beyond even the science, okay? It's common sense. You fire 70,000 or whatever healthcare. Who's going to replace them? Colonel Sanders?
Right. Exactly. They're complaining that there's shortages of beds, there's shortages in healthcare. So what's their answer? They're going to get rid of 70,000 healthcare workers. And the thing is, we are seeing this become incredibly political because the FDA advisory board slapped down Biden's idea on boosters, and they limited it to who should have boosters. It was people with immunodeficiencies and folks over 65 with compromised immune systems. The CDC, their advisory board, shot it down completely, and the head of the CDC said, no, I'm not going to listen to the scientists. I'm going to follow President Biden's recommendation.
Well, personally, I think anyone that doesn't have a pre-existing condition or some other type of medical consideration is an idiot not to get vaccinated. That's my own opinion. But the politicization of it, it is a slippery slope. But now maybe we'll fire people that have cancer because they cost too much on the payroll. Well, it is a definite slippery slope. But I do think anyone that didn't get vaccinated is an asshole.
Honestly, even bigger than the slippery slope. My fear is that the Biden administration has been spreading so much misinformation about this vaccine because we do not have the data to back up what he's saying. And now they're pushing pregnant women to get vaccinated. There's absolutely no data on how it will affect pregnant women or their unborn children. So they're pushing this stuff without data. But I am concerned that the public is going to turn against vaccines as a whole and start going against the MMR vaccine, the polio vaccine, vaccines that we have decades of data to prove they work, all because Biden is jumping the gun on the science.
Well, Biden and science, that's like an oxymoron, so we just can move on from there. AOC crying about funding of the Iron Dome. First of all, for someone that was going to challenge Schumer, I never thought she was intelligent. She's a moron. But you're in New York and you're against, basically protecting Israel. And by the way, $1 billion, the way they spend money, that's like me spending $1 on an ice cream cone. I mean, it's a joke. $1 billion is it's like a penny. It's not even worth considering. And she's crying. First of all, she got criticized because it proved her, rabid anti-Semitism and anti-Israeli slant. But also, she got criticized by women who talked about, women are always, or not always, have been in the past, and even in today's cases, or present day case, criticized for not being able to handle pressure and to being too emotional. And here she is, she thought she was going to be the heir apparent to bigger and better things. You cry about the Iron Dome?
Yeah. No,
I mean, even if you hated the Israel, you thought it was a waste. Really?
The Iron Dome vote was a watershed moment because, one, it actually showed that Republicans and Democrats can get together to accomplish something. It was, I believe the vote was 402 to 9. That 9 basically being the Squad and their allies. But it even bigger than the bipartisanship, and let's be very clear about this, the Iron Dome is a defensive mechanism. So what these 9 people were voting for is to not allow Israel to protect itself against incoming missiles.
Well, how does that surprise you about the Squad?
Yeah,
it doesn't surprise me at all.
But reasons this was a watershed moment is that Democrats on the floor of the House called Ilhan Omar out for being an anti-Semite.
Good. I didn't know that. Thank God.
Yes, one of the congressmen from Florida stood up, Democrat from Florida, said he cannot stand by and let this go. Showed her for the anti-Semite she is. So they finally stood up to the Squad. But even better than that, you are seeing the beginning of the end of AOC's career. Because, aren't you just heartbroken?
I don't think I can go on. I don't think I can function tonight.
She wants to primary Chuck Schumer. Well, guess what? She voted present on the Iron Dome bill. She didn't have the courage to stand by her convictions and vote no. But she knew if she voted yes, that was going to be the end of it. Well, voting present is just as bad as voting no as far as the Jewish community in New York is going to be concerned. So she just handed Chuck Schumer an attack ad.
But it's not enough for the Squad.
But because she voted present instead of no, now there's a rift between her and the Squad. So the progressive wall is now starting to show cracks.
And I also believe, speaking of cracks, I believe that as Biden's power, influence, prestige, viability fades, I really think this is just one of many cracks that are going to happen. I think this could just be wishful thinking. I think for their own survival, I believe the Democrats are going to say enough is enough and start ridding people like the Squad and other, because they know this is killing them.
Yes, it is. And I've seen these amazing comments like, Manchin is not a real Democrat. No. Manchin is the real Democrat. The wackos in the Squad are socialists, not Democrats. And there's a big difference. Manchin is a Democrat in the tradition of JFK and FDR. It's these wackos on the left that are not real Democrats and are tearing apart the party.
Well, one other thing about AOC and the Squad, Bernie Sanders was in the news for various reasons, and I'm thinking, what an ass! This guy endorsed AOC. They're like buddies, and how despicable is that person? He is a despicable human being.
Oh, yes, he is. He's a self-hating Jew. He's always been a self-hating Jew. That's why he moved from New York City to Vermont, where I don't think he's encountered a Jew in Vermont in 40 years.
Except maybe Ben and Jerry, another two self-hating Jews. But a despicable person. I guess we'll end on a lighter note, which I love. This guy Shaq denounced his status as a star. I think he actually works as a policeman. He does endure. He's a very successful man, but he's kind of a common guy. He's got his roots in the ground. He's got his feet planted on where most people are planted, and he denounced his celebrity status because he goes, "These people are crazy. They're a bunch of nuts."
Yeah, Shaq came out. It was absolutely amazing. Now,
brilliant.
Shaq has turned out to be a very intelligent person.
He's got an MBA.
He's
no dummy.
He's got his MBA. He's got several successful businesses. This guy left the NBA behind and really just took
Crushing
his
it.
success and he's crushing it.
Crushing
But
it.
he knows what these idiots in Hollywood are doing to America. And he's just going, you know what? I don't want to be considered a celebrity. I don't want to be associated with these people.
You know something? He did it for authentic reasons, but I think it's going to help his marketability because that's what makes him Shaq. He crosses ethnic lines. He's can go. He appeals to Middle America. And I think people, not everyone, like left wing nutcases love that crap, but I think people are becoming. You look at the ratings for the Oscars, the Emmys. No one even watches this shit. When I was like in seventh, eighth grade, I remember there was like the biggest buzz, even like even as a young kid. Oh, who won the what speech? I mean, people tuned in. No one tunes in. It's a bunch of crap. No one wants to hear overpaid, oversexed idiots talk about their worldview on economic policy. Please graduate high school and then come back to me. How does that sound?
Nobody wants to hear somebody who has been whining about only making $6 million for their last picture tell the American people how to run their lives. And, the rich are evil. And guess what? Whoopi Goldberg actually came out and suddenly went, wait a minute, all of these people talking about tax the rich and they're talking about me.
No kidding, genius.
No kidding.
Yeah, and by the way, she never got out. She never graduated high school. Just want to let you know. Okay,
and by the way, talking about taxing the rich, they keep saying we've mentioned a couple times. They talk about, it's the bills are going to cost nothing, and it's all going to be done by taxing the rich. If they're so sure that they can pay for this entire thing by taxing the rich, why are they enabling the IRS to go after every banking transaction over $600?
Hello. Surprise. Goma pile. And why is CNN, they're conveniently not really reporting? It's going to be middle America. You could tax the rich, the 1%, 90%, and it wouldn't make a damn bit of difference in terms of this $5 trillion boondoggle.
Nope.
Well, another great edition of Carnivore Bites. We were kind of on a roll. I think our listenership is growing, isn't it, Dr. Lopkin?
We're getting more and more listeners, and we're getting more and more outlets. You can find us every week at xvadio.com/podcast, as well as the Carnivore Radio website. And of course, we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music. And if YouTube doesn't decide to cancel us, we're on YouTube as well.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. Thank our listeners. Take care.
We'll see you next week.